and had chosen to bet on the Ole Miss basketball team, if you could find a line on their game as they were hosting North Alabama, you would be a sad individual right now. You're just an Ole Miss basketball fan, period. You're a little bit of a sad individual right now. Like that's your emotion. I'm not saying that you are a sad individual. I'm just saying that your demeanor is that of sadness and defeat, because defeat is what just happened to the Rebels. Against the University of North Alabama from the Atlantic Sun Conference, the A-Sun, with a net ranking of 276 and a 4-5 record coming into the game, Ole Miss goes down 66-65. Led it by a deuce at the half, 36-34. They get outscored by 3 in the second half, 32-29. North Alabama able to get pretty much any shot they wanted, especially down the stretch. Open mid-range jumpers, easily to the rim. Ole Miss missed what would have been a go-ahead layup from Deshaun Ruffin with about 8 seconds left. Scramble for a loose ball. North Alabama player comes up with it. And you know what he does? He just sits there and waits for Ole Miss to eventually get their hands on it to tie it up, with the possession arrow favoring North Alabama. Heady play.
Yeah, it's a horrendous loss. I mean, there's no other way to spin it. They're 273 in the net. I think their Ken Palm is in the 300s. It's possibly one of the worst losses in terms of the metrics in program history. It is a horrendous loss in an early season that hasn't been inspiring after going 4-14 in conference play. It's not just that they lost to North Alabama. Bad losses happen in basketball sometimes. It's a sport of volatility. But when you started the UCF game down 21-0 at home, when Memphis ran you out of the gym in the first 5 minutes of that game, when it looks like offensively you are just a disaster, and you've got a pair of guards that shouldn't be running an offense that looks that bad, again, after going 4-14 in conference play, it's a hard product to consume and to watch, and now bad losses are happening. Up until this point, they didn't have a bad loss in the metrics on the schedule. They didn't have one. Now they do, and this is a horrible one. And fan base is checking out in droves. I've had friends text me, I didn't know they were playing a basketball game today. And these are people that don't miss a pitch, a dribble, a snap of Ole Miss sports. And they're out. So things better, I mean, you know, said this during baseball season, and look at what happened. So credit me when they turn this around. They got 2 months to figure it out. Because right now, the basketball product, despite it being a difficult job, and it is, despite NIL lacking in basketball compared to other SEC counterparts like Kentucky or Arkansas, for example, really lacking compared to some of their SEC counterparts. This is unacceptable. And they got 2 months to change it. Or else.
Ole Miss's first 4 SEC games, we're using net rankings here. They open SEC play a week from tomorrow against Tennessee, who is currently number 4 in the net, at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon on the day that the football team plays a bowl game. In the middle of the week. Not 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon that's a holiday. On December 28th, they play at 4 o'clock against the 4th best team in the country, according to the net. And then they go to Alabama on January the 3rd for a Tuesday night game against an Alabama team that currently in the net is number 7. And then they go to Mississippi State on January the 7th on Saturday afternoon to face a Mississippi State team that is currently 11-0 and is number 14 in the net. And then they come back home to host Auburn An Auburn team that is 9-2 and is currently number 57 in the net rankings, but is ranked in the top 25 in the polls if you care. That's how SEC play begins for Ole Miss. Now, after that, you got a couple of games that are winnable. Georgia, South Carolina. Got to go to Arkansas. That one looks tough. They all look tough, man. They just lost to North Alabama at home on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. Which, all of this can be true at once. Ole Miss generally is a really difficult basketball job. No history of winning. A state that doesn't produce. I know. But I'm getting there. It's a very difficult job. There are a lot of things working against whoever the head coach for Ole Miss basketball is when they take the job. But the current product on the floor is simply unacceptable. Lacking NIL funds compared to SEC counterparts is not why that happened. It is not why UCF happened. It is not why you're going 4-14. This roster should be better, or at least the guard play should look better than this. It's simply unacceptable. We can have the debate of how difficult of a job it is, and that's not why this is happening, though. Too many people excuse it. Oh, well, then donate more money to the Grove Collective if you want this to change.
Oh, stop.
No, this is unacceptable. What has happened today, what has happened at the start of this season, what happened in conference play last season is simply and should not be acceptable. It shouldn't be something that you explain away or try to justify. Everybody else in the SEC has figured it out. Everybody else. Except for Vanderbilt.
Vandy's a mess. South Carolina's a mess. Georgia's a mess.
But South Carolina has a recent trip to the Final Four, at least. They went there.
Yeah, but it was so long. Yes,
and fired the guy that took them there.
But they fired the guy that took them there 3 years later.
But you're seeing it around the league. Programs are getting better. Teams are getting better. They're hiring better coaches. The league is significantly better.
Look, man, Ole Miss spent $100 million on a basketball building. You don't spend $100 million on anything for it to sit empty. For it to be the home of a program that has a fan base that is apathetic and doesn't even know that its team's playing. Ole Miss has lost 4 of its last 7. Oh, no, 4 of its last 6.
And I keep seeing people, when I talk about stuff like this, like on our podcast or whatever, people say, well, the fans have never cared. Not true.
That is false.
I have seen both.
It was false in the 1980s. It was false in the 1990s. It was false in the 2000s. And it is false in the teens.
And I feel like
if you put a product on the floor that is competitive, Ole Miss can create and has created as good an environment for basketball as you will find anywhere in the country, including Borky in the building they're playing in right now.
Yep.
So don't tell me people don't care. That's not true.
And it seems like they have rational expectations. I don't know a single Ole Miss fan that's like, better be a tournament team every year. I don't know a single one that thinks that crazy. It's just be entertaining and competitive and make it a once every 4-year clip with competitive teams in the other 3 that are like on the bubble hosting NIT games is one that people have supported in the past. I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's crazy to think that Ole Miss is a basketball program that could or should get to the NCAA tournament 4 out of 10 years.
Yeah. 4
times
out of 10 is
in a
better
decade?
than 1 out of 4 for sure. Yeah, 4 out of 10. You have
40% of the time.
You have to finish 8th in the SEC or better to get there now. That's it.
They just lost to North Alabama to fall to 8-4 on the year. And it's sure not about to get any. We're not close friends. We don't call each other and hang out and whatever. I have friends that are close friends with him. But very much acquaintances. See each other socially from time to time. He and his family just incredibly plugged into the Oxford community. So it's hard. The expectations were laid out for Kermit Davis and were abundantly clear going into this season. The expectation is you get to the NCAA tournament. It's time to get to the NCAA tournament. And if you don't, there better be a very extenuating circumstance. You don't want to be talking about this, though, 8 days before you start conference play.
A loss to North Alabama warrants at least the fans asking the questions.
No, I get it. I get it. We've had people today on the C Spire text line said, make the decision right now. Just do it now.
No reason to. No real reason to. Right? I mean, that unless the team just absolutely quits on the guy, what do you gain from that?
Morky, somebody points out that Coach Norman Dale got another chance. And you don't want to give...
No, you don't call Rick Pitino. There are guys that are good coaches at mid-majors that you can hire. I've already gotten a text from a friend. None of the mid-major coaches would want to come. Yes, they would. Kermit's making more than $3 million a year. You could find somebody that's having success at a lower-level program. Okay, stop it. That's ridiculous. But you don't have to go down that well and lower your standards to the point of that. I don't think you should anyway. There are good coaches out there.
C-Spire text line, this is the same thing that was being said about Mike Bianco, and he won a national championship. I don't see why people can't wait until the end of the season is over or nearly over.
They will. That's the thing. I mean, they will. Correct me if I'm wrong. Keith Carter's not pulling a plug on anything right now. No shot.
Borky, I got a message that said, Richard, do you think Michael knows who Norman Dale is or was? Don't Google it.
Oh, yeah, I do. The name didn't ring a bell, but I've seen the movie many times.
Okay. Hoosiers reference, obviously.
Yes.
So you've got Mississippi State playing right now. And at the half, the Bulldogs lead 31-23 over Drake. And that is happening in Lincoln, Nebraska. The game is called the Battle in the Vault. I don't know if that is technically one of those MTEs, the multi-team event deals where you're allowed to play games that don't count toward the total number of games you play. Anyway. So, yeah, I mean, more basketball conversation today than we've had in a while. And the basketball conversation centers around the idea that people are really disgusted with what Ole Miss is right now. Disgusted is better than not caring. And I don't know which sentiment is larger right now.
Apathy. Boy, you go off to a bad start in conference play, too. I mean, you lose Wednesday night when everybody's focused on the bowl game to start conference play and rattle off a couple more losses. One of those is to Mississippi State, and then it won't even be anger anymore. It'll be, well, the baseball team just won a championship. Let's go watch them instead.
Yeah.
Let's care about them instead.
Dan in Hattiesburg says it doesn't help that their biggest rival is ranked and undefeated right now.
Has nothing to do with this.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Dan, but I don't think that really applies here. In football, I think that would apply. In baseball, I think it would apply. But Mississippi State's got a lot to prove, right? Still. They are off to a really good start, and they've been good in close games. They've managed to win close games. Josh and Laurel says, you guys are so wrong. Josh, tell us what we're wrong about, because I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
He said State versus Ole Miss matters in every sport. That is not why fans are mad right now. That has absolutely. I interact with Ole Miss fans on a daily basis on this show via text line, friends, neighbors, social media. Not a single person has mentioned Chris Jans or that team. Yes, the Egg Bowl matters, all that stuff. When it comes to basketball and going 4-14 in conference play and following it up with this, it has nothing to do, 0% to do with what is happening in Starkville right now. Nothing. Zero. If State was also 8-4 with losses to North Alabama and UCF, fans would not be okay with what is happening. Not everything. And this State fans last year wanted to move on from Ben Howland absent his record against Ole Miss. That is in here. So computer's losing its mind.
Oh, okay. I was curious what that was.
Yeah, it sounds like a B.
I didn't know if that was like the intro to the music or what.
No, that is a computer absolutely losing its mind in here.
Josh goes farther down this rabbit hole. He says, let State make a deep run and Ole Miss not, and Kermit is done. Josh, I know you think that you got the market cornered on this and that you understand it better than we do, and maybe you do. Mississippi State making a deep run in the tournament has nothing to do with Kermit Davis's future. Being 4-14 in the SEC last year and losing to North Alabama on a Tuesday afternoon in December this year, and a really good top of the SEC with a daunting schedule to start league play, those are the things that factor into Kermit Davis and his future as the head coach at Ole Miss. And he's basically split games with Mississippi State every year. We'll be back.